There was a man in Munich in 1840-something who every morning got up exactly at 7, read for 2 hours, walked his dog, ate alone, and in the afternoons played the flute. He was in no hurry. He did not answer urgent letters. He did not attend important meetings. His academic colleagues despised him. His contemporaries ignored him. And he, meanwhile, was writing the most lucid and devastating philosophy of the century. That man was Arthur Schopenhauer. And what he wrote about human effort, work, and the will is exactly what no one has ever told you in earnest. This is a letter. Not a video, not a lesson, not a sermon. A letter for you, who have been running for years without really knowing where to. Let me start where it hurts. You have been believing for a long time that if you work hard enough, if you sacrifice yourself enough, if you grit your teeth with the right amount of force, something will change. That life will yield to your effort. That the universe at some point will give you back what you have given it. That feeling you get when you run out of strength at 2 a.m. in front of a screen, convinced that this sacrifice has some kind of cosmic meaning. Schopenhauer looked you straight in the face and told you, you are suffering needlessly. Not because you are weak, but because no one explained to you how this really works. And I, having spent far too many years reading this man, have come to an uncomfortable conclusion. He was right. About almost everything. So sit down. Because what I am about to tell you is not motivation. It is not a mind trick to make you perform better. It is the opposite. It is the truth that has been hidden from you throughout your entire productive life. Schopenhauer started from an idea that, when you hear it for the first time, seems nihilistic and dark, but is actually the most liberating thing one can comprehend. He said that at the core of every living being there exists what he called the will. Not yours, not mine. A blind force, without purpose, without direction, that simply wills. It wills for no reason. It wills because it is its nature. And that will inhabits us. It moves us. It makes us desire, strive, build, fight for nothing. For nothing in the sense that this will is never satisfied. It never rests. When you get what you want, the will has already placed the next goal on the horizon. It doesn't give you time to enjoy. It isn't designed for you to enjoy. It is designed to keep on willing. How many times has this happened to you? You get the job. A month later, it is no longer enough. You buy the car. 3 months later, you look at it with indifference. You reach the figure you were chasing. And instead of peace, there is a strange emptiness you didn't expect. That is not ingratitude on your part. It is the exact mechanics Schopenhauer spoke of 200 years ago. The question then is this. If desire is never satiated, if the will always asks for more, what is the point of wearing yourself out as if the next conquest were going to be the definitive one? And that is where most people get stuck. Because the instinctive answer is to keep going, work harder, be more disciplined, optimize time better. The entire culture is built upon that answer. Social media, productivity books, performance gurus, 5 a.m. podcasts, all of that is fuel for the blind will, not for you. You are the vehicle. The will is the engine. And if you do not understand that difference, you will spend your whole life running with the conviction that it is you who decides the direction. Schopenhauer was brutally honest about this. And he was honest because he had lived it. He spent years trying to be recognized, trying to get his work to reach people, trying to compete with Hegel, who at the time was the fashionable philosopher, the applauded one, the one who filled auditoriums. And he failed miserably. His courses were deserted. His magnum opus, The World as Will and Representation, was published when he was 30, and almost no one read it for decades. And in that failure, in that long night of irrelevance, something curious happened. He found enough distance to see everything clearly. He saw that excessive effort, fierce ambition, constant sacrifice were the most sophisticated chains the will had invented to keep us bound. So he chose something else. He chose to reduce, to simplify, to live without drama, to wake up slowly, to read without haste, to walk along the same path, to play the flute, to eat well, not to respond to urgencies that were not really urgent, not to fight for a place at any table of power. And it was in that seemingly small life that he wrote the greatest things. This is what I want you to understand. Reduction is not surrender. It is intelligence. It is understanding that most of what you do with urgency did not require it. That most of what you feel as an inescapable obligation is a construct. That the clock chasing you has a name. It is called the will. And that you, if you want, can learn not to obey it every time it screams. But there is something Schopenhauer added that is even more uncomfortable than all of the above. And it is this. Suffering, he said, is not the price of error. It is the default state of existence. It is not that you suffer because you made bad decisions. You suffer because you are a being that desires, and desiring hurts. Not at the moment of active desire, but in the emptiness left behind, in the waiting, in the disappointment, in the interval between what you have and what you think you need. Life, in his reading, oscillates between the pain of unsatisfied desire and the boredom of satisfied desire. When you don't have what you want, you suffer. When you have it, you get bored. And then the cycle starts all over again. This sounds like a dead-end trap. I know, and I understand. But Schopenhauer did not stop there, even though many people abandon him at that point and dismiss him as a pessimistic philosopher from whom nothing useful can be drawn. That is a misreading, a costly mistake, because he did offer ways out, not magical ways out, not comfortable ways out, but real ways out. The first is art, aesthetic contemplation, when you truly submerge yourself in music, in painting, in literature, in any form of beauty that requires complete attention, the will falls silent. It is the only moment when its noise ceases. Not forever. But during that time, you are free. You desire nothing. You pursue nothing. You just exist before what you are contemplating. Schopenhauer considered that state one of the closest to genuine peace a human being can achieve. And here is something important that is rarely mentioned about him. He did not say art was a luxury. He spoke of it as a necessity, as mental hygiene, as the equivalent of sleeping or eating. Without those moments of pure contemplation, the will consumes you entirely. No balance is possible. When was the last time you did something without an expected return, without a measurable outcome, without justifying it as an investment of time? Just because it was beautiful, period. If you can't remember when, you have a problem that no productivity app is going to solve. The second way out Schopenhauer proposed is more difficult. It is compassion. Not performative compassion, not the easy gesture, but the deep understanding that the other suffers exactly the same way you do. That the person who exasperates you, who competes with you, who seems to have everything easier, is just as trapped in the will as you are. They are just as blind as you are. They are just as tired deep down as you are. When you truly understand it, competition loses its venom. It doesn't disappear, but it no longer devours you from the inside. And that alone, that small adjustment in the way you look at others, can release an absurd amount of mental energy that you used to spend on resentment, on comparison, on the game of who gets further faster. The third way out is the one he found hardest to admit because it clashes with his own character, but he pointed to it anyway: voluntary renunciation. Not extreme asceticism, not contempt for the world, but simply not feeding every desire that appears, letting it be without pursuing it, observing the impulse without executing it. The difference between the man who runs after everything he wants and the one who chooses which things are worth running for is, according to Schopenhauer, the difference between a life consumed and a life lived. That requires a form of courage that no one celebrates. There is no medal for not buying what you do not need. There is no applause for not responding to provocation. There is no recognition for choosing a quiet afternoon instead of a networking meeting that leads you nowhere. But that silent courage, that capacity to say no to the will, is the closest thing to freedom this philosophy offers. And now let me ask you a direct question. How long have you been working as if resting were a failure? How many weeks, months, years have you been treating free time as something you have to justify? As if the value of your life were measured in billable hours, in completed tasks, in targets achieved. As if existing quietly were somehow a source of shame. That is not dedication. That is the will making you believe it is you who decides. And there is something even darker that Schopenhauer observed with that gaze of a man who is no longer surprised by anything. The entire society is organized so that you do not stop, so that you never ask yourself the questions you are reading right now, so that the pace is so high, the noise so constant, the to-do list so long, that the possibility of thinking deeply about what you are doing all this for never arises. It is not a conspiracy. It is something more insidious than that. It is simply the will scaling up, no longer just in you, in systems, in institutions, in collective expectations. The entire social edifice is built on the principle that more is better, that fast is superior to slow, that producing is more dignified than contemplating. And you, inside that edifice, have spent years wondering why you are tired without being able to rest, why you work without feeling satisfied, why you reach the weekend exhausted and on Monday return to the same state without having recovered anything real. Schopenhauer had an answer for that too. He said that the man who cannot be alone with himself is the poorest man alive, not the one who has no money, the one who cannot sit in silence, without stimulus, without an agenda, without performance, and just be. That inner poverty is what makes us dependent on external noise, on work as an identity, on busyness as a shield against the most uncomfortable question of all. If you took everything away, if you had no title, no achievements, no pending plans, what would be left? If that question generates immediate anxiety in you, you have found exactly the place where you need to work. Not on your agenda, not on your performance, but on that capacity to exist without needing to prove anything. Now then, it would be unfair to leave you here without clarifying something that is constantly misunderstood about this philosophy. Schopenhauer was not saying you should do nothing. He was not an apologist for laziness. He was a tremendously disciplined man, tremendously dedicated to his work, tremendously demanding of himself in his intellectual labor. What he said is that effort has to be born from a different place, not from fear, not from comparison, not from the anxiety of being left behind, but from something he considered much rarer and much more valuable: genuine impulse. The thing you do because in it you find the only state where the will stops for you. The work you do not feel as work because in it there is contemplation, not just production. That is what distinguished his workday from that of his busy contemporaries. Not that he worked less, but that he worked from a different state, without manufactured urgency, without the venom of immediate recognition as a driver, without the trap of measuring his worth by the world's response to what he did. And that, in the 21st century, with notifications every 3 minutes and metrics for everything, is an almost revolutionary act. If there is one thing Schopenhauer has taught me, and I do not say this lightly, it is this: a life well lived is not measured by what you build. It is measured by the moments when the will shuts its mouth and you, at last, can hear yourself. Those moments are rare. They do not arrive on their own. The conditions must be created for them. One must have the courage to slow down when everything pushes to accelerate. One must be able to look at a to-do list and decide that today none of it is urgent. One must learn to distinguish between the desire that comes from you and the desire the will has implanted in you without you noticing. And that is work, real work, the hardest kind, because it has no metric, it has no visible reward, there is no one to applaud you for having done it. But it changes everything, absolutely everything. If what you have just read has touched you somewhere you didn't expect, if at any point you have had the feeling that someone was describing exactly what you lived through, but from an angle you had never considered, I want you to know that there is a space where I go much deeper than this, where I speak without the limit of what YouTube allows or what the algorithm rewards. The link is in the description of the video. If you feel you need more, it is there. But let's go back, because there is one last thing I want to tell you about Schopenhauer, and it is the one least mentioned, the one that, for me, redeems him from all the darkness his ideas project. He found joy, not loud joy, not that of triumph or delayed recognition, though some of that arrived at the end of his life, and he received it with a certain elegant irony. But the quiet joy of someone who has reached an honest agreement with existence, who knows that the world owes him nothing, who knows that desire has no bottom, who knows that time is limited and stimuli unlimited, and that therefore consciously choosing where you place your attention is the only real power you have. He lived like that for decades, with a dog, with a flute, with books, with walks, without great fuss, without asking permission to live at a pace that seemed honest to him. And he wrote things we are still reading 200 years later, precisely because they were in no hurry, because they were written from a place where the will did not dictate. That is what I am offering you. Not a system, not a methodology, not a 5-step plan, just a way of looking at what is already happening in your life through the eyes of someone who understands the mechanics behind it. You work too much. You probably know it. But you will keep doing it until you understand why. And the answer is not in the agenda, nor in the boss, nor in the bills. It is in that blind will that inhabits you, and that takes for your ambition what is actually its hunger. Schopenhauer saw it, and he chose something else. You can too. If this channel means something to you, if at any point in this video you have recognized something that no one around you names clearly, I want you to know this. This channel has no advertising. There are no brands behind it, nor contracts that filter what can be said. That is not an accident. It is a decision. The freedom to speak about this without constraints has a cost, and whoever chooses to bear it has access to everything that doesn't fit here. If you want to be part of that space, the link is, as always, in the description. The world is not going to slow down to wait for you. but you can decide when to stop running. That decision, small and silent as it is, might be the most important one you make in a long time. So much for this letter. I hope it has reached where it needed to reach.